Hello, this is Steven Sells,
And Annie Brunelle.
and we're doing our military database project. Here are a couple stats. So the problem is the military needs a system to keep track of its records, and it has a atrociously high suicide rate, and there's not much we can do about it. I worked for a company that was trying to work for the Pentagon to do basically data profiling to see if they could figure out who was likely to kill themselves. There's some terrifying statistics out there. Here's one of them that since 2001, more U.S. soldiers have died from suicide than in combat. There's a terrifying statistic that 22 veterans commit suicide every day. Active soldiers are also dying at a higher rate than we've ever had from suicide. It's terrible for morale, and it needs addressing. So we made an ERD, and attempting to try and make psychological profiling be consolidated into one place so that we could look and say, okay, does someone have a problem or are they at low risk?
Okay, so bringing up our actual database, we have our forms menu, our reports menu, and our closed database functions. Looking at some of our forms, let's go into our soldier form. So let's go ahead and add someone. We have first name, last name, date of birth 0101 1000, home city Nashville, Tennessee. Your soldier ID is 23, and your social is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Gender, race, you are a human, and our military branch, let's put you in the Coast Guard. Okay, so we're going to save that record. Great, and then if you want to look at the other records we have, oops, I'm going the wrong way. So we have Darth Vader, we have Anakin Skywalker, Jar Jar Binks, the whole
Star Wars.
crew there. So we have the same thing with doctors, same thing with psychologists. Okay, here's the doctors. Here are our psychologists.
Man, that's a nice formatting.
Here are our medical records. So anytime that a soldier has to go in for a physical, or has an injury, or has an illness, that gets logged in. Also, anytime that they go to a psychiatrist for counseling, that also gets put in. We created that such that the military can first of all keep track of everything, and second of all, use this later for kind of some analysis on suicides. So lastly, we have our suicide data entry form, which talks about who it is, what type of suicide, notes, descriptions, and all of that. And then we also, of course, have our service records form. So this will track soldiers as they go through basic training, get stationed somewhere, get promoted, get demoted. Oh yeah, these are all of our types. End tour of duty, start tour of duty, die, complete basic training, begin basic training,
Death threat level,
etc. Yeah, and then we have a death threat level. So these are all of our forms. So when we go to our reports menu, these are all of the reports that we have that you can go through. So our first one is the birth year report. This is going to show everyone who's born after a specific year. So let's go ahead and say 1950. And Darth Maul was born after then, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, all of these were, and then you can print it. We won't print it right now. And then we have just our very basic ones for medical report and psych report. So we want to, let's say, soldier ID number 1 just committed suicide, and so we want to go back and look at everything that happened with our medical history, and then everything that happened with our psych history. Okay, so let's go ahead and print this one. And we see here we have our lovely thing to print. Wonderful. Go ahead and close that. Okay, close that. Going on down the line, we have our service reports by soldier. So same thing, let's look back at what Soldier 1 did. And all he did was basic training in Idaho, which had a low death threat level. So that may or may not give us information as to trying to look at the suicide level. The next thing we have is looking by branch. So let's look at the Army. Wow, look, this is all of the different, how the Army has performed within the service records. So we can see who did what, all within our Army. That will give a good idea. Sometimes we have to look back at records to see who was when and how the Army as a branch was functioning. Of course, we still have our suicide report. So let's look at, again, at that Soldier ID 1. And this will bring up everything about the suicide, so all the details, the number of psych visits he's attended, whether there was a note or not, and then all of his biographical information too, so that the people analyzing it can get a really good sense of how that's going on, of what happened. And lastly, we have our death threat level report. So let's look at everything that happened that had a high death threat level. And we don't have very many, which is a good thing. We of course have a ton down at the low level. And we can see, okay, well, all of these events had a high death threat level, and maybe we want to be fixing that. So that we can look at that. Let's go ahead and look at the low one also to kind of get a feel for that.
So mean.
Here's the low. You see we have a ton of these, of course, lots of basic training, lots of completed basic training, which is good. We want lower death threats for our soldiers. That's a good thing to be able to analyze. So those are all of our reports. Here we are back at the main menu.
Just the close database button.
And sure, let's close our database.